Open the podcast bay doors, Hal.
Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 33 of Welcome to Geektown. I'm your host, Kurt Onstead. I've been a proud geek all my life, being into role-playing games, board games, sci-fi, fantasy, and especially superheroes and comics. And I want to help others join me in those pursuits. But I've found that sometimes people can get overwhelmed or feel left out because they don't already have what some consider the requisite knowledge to be considered a fan. And that's where Welcome to Geektown comes in. Here you can ask your questions without feeling like a gatekeeper is calling you out for not yet being fully versed in every aspect of your new interest. A quick reminder that if you're looking for more Welcome to Geektown, check me out on Twitter at Geektown Podcast. I've tucked myself into a corner of the Twitterverse that is largely positive and inclusive, and interact with fans and professionals alike on there. Come join in! This week, it's time for another installment of The Replacements, where, thanks to Justin B. asking me early on, what happens to the replacement heroes when the originals come back? I look at a heroic identity that has had multiple people take up its mantle, and discuss how they got there and what happened to those who, at one point or another, replaced the original. This time, we're looking at Iron Man. Like in the previous episodes, I'm just covering the main comic book continuity, so what-ifs and alternate universes like 2099 and Marvel Mangaverse aren't going to be discussed. Still, quite a few people over the years have donned one of the various Iron Man armors, although most of those I wouldn't classify as replacements. In fact, a couple of those were imposters or thieves. Weasel Wills, way back in Tales of Suspense number 65, published in May of 1965, and Clarence Ward in 2004, in issues 86 through 89 of Iron Man Volume 3, each stole armors and impersonated the Armored Avenger for their own villainous purposes. Both were defeated by Tony Stark wearing his own Iron Man armor and have not been seen again. Moving on to those who have worn an Iron Man armor with Tony's permission, Harold, aka Happy Hogan, has worn the suit a few times, but mostly in non-combat roles, to allow Tony Stark and Iron Man to appear together at a press conference or other Stark Industries event. He's ended up fighting a couple of times, but those have left him worse for wear, and so he's never been considered an actual replacement for Tony. There was a one-issue story in 1970, Iron Man number 21 to be specific, when, due to heart problems, Tony decided he needed someone else to don the armor. Happy's friend and fellow former boxer, Eddie March, volunteered. Eddie and Tony trained together for a few weeks before officially becoming the new Iron Man. Eddie fought the Russian villain known as Crimson Dynamo in his first outing, but was severely injured doing so. Tony paid for Eddie's medical expenses, and even gave Eddie a spare set of armor as his way of saying thanks. Finally, we get to the only true Iron Man replacement, James Rhodes, or Rhodey to his friends. As a pilot in the Marine Corps, Rhodey was stationed in the same military theater that Tony Stark was captured in. Originally, this was written as being Vietnam, but more recent stories have retconned that to Afghanistan. And the two met as Tony was attempting to return to American-controlled territory after escaping in his original Iron Man armor. Rhodes's copter had been taken out of the sky by enemy fire, but he had successfully landed in one piece. The pair used the batteries on the helicopter to recharge Tony's armor, then attempted to make their way back towards an American encampment. They happened to cross an enemy rocket base first, but were able to destroy that base and steal an enemy chopper and make their way to safety. Impressed with Rhodey's skills, Tony told him there was a job waiting for him at Stark Industries when his military tour was over. Although he didn't take that offer immediately, he did eventually accept and acted as Tony's personal pilot and chief aviation engineer. Being one of the few people who knew that Tony and Iron Man were the same person, even a number of the Avengers believed the Tony's Bodyguard cover story. Rhodey often worked behind the scenes and occasionally on the front lines to help fight Iron Man's enemies. Rather than one of his many nemesises, it was Tony's inner demons that led him to giving up the Iron Man suit for some time. The famous Demon in a Bottle storyline showed Tony finally hitting rock bottom as an alcoholic and recognizing his problem. Rhodey put on the suit to defend Stark International from armored criminal Magma, and Tony asked James to continue as Iron Man while Tony got his life back in order. From issue number 170 all the way to issue number 216, almost 4 years of publishing time, James Rhodes was Iron Man. Rhodey was Iron Man during the original Secret Wars miniseries, and was one of the founding members of the West Coast Avengers. Of all the replacements I've covered so far, this was the longest lasting. Eventually, however, Tony did create an updated suit for himself and once again took over as Iron Man. Rhodey had recently gone through a traumatic experience while in his armor and was more than happy to retire, although he stayed as an important employee at Tony's latest company, Stark Enterprises. This was not Rhodey's only run as Iron Man. We'll get into his second stint as the Armored Avenger right after this. There are a lot of ways you can listen to Welcome to Geektown. But did you know that you can actually get paid just for listening to this, or almost any of your other favorite podcasts? I recently found out about this free app called Podcoin, and it literally pays you to listen to podcasts. Here's how it works. You listen to podcasts and you earn Podcoin while you listen. Then you turn that Podcoin in for gift cards at places like Amazon or Starbucks. Or if you're feeling generous, you could even donate that Podcoin to charity. The more you listen, the more you earn. Just download the app right now on iPhone or Android and use the sign-up code GEEKTOWN and you'll get 300 bonus Podcoin just for signing up. Keep listening and eventually you'll earn enough Podcoin to get a cappuccino at Starbucks or an Amazon gift card worth a few bucks. So go ahead and go listen to this podcast on Podcoin and sign up with the code GEEKTOWN. Thanks. And now, back to the show. In the 1990s, DC and Marvel both went on a death spree, apparently killing, crippling, or otherwise taking out some of their big heroes and replacing them, including Superman, Batman, Green Lantern, Spider-Man, and, obviously for this episode, Iron Man. Tony was apparently dead to the world, and James Rhodes was named as the CEO of Stark Enterprises. Shortly before this, Rhodey had been given a silver and black model of the armor nicknamed War Machine. Right after Tony's apparent demise, Rhodey, together with Happy, Eddie March, and other Stark allies Bethany Cabe, Carl Walker, and Michael O'Brien, were able to defeat Ultimo, the villain responsible for Tony's death. For the one issue they fought together, they were known as the Iron Legion. Rhodey was the only one who continued, however, taking the Iron Man name until he discovered that Tony had faked his death, although he had been crippled, and hadn't told anyone, including Rhodey. This strained the friendship between the two to the breaking point, and Rhodey resigned from Stark Enterprises, although he took the War Machine armor with him. He fought solo as War Machine for a while, first in the Stark-based armor, then later in an alien armor known as the Eidolon Warwear that was gifted to him. He ended up sacrificing this Warwear suit and retired again from the superhero life. During Rhodey's solo adventures and retirement, Tony had died 2 more times. I told you it was a spree. Then returned in the Heroes Reborn storyline. It was when Tony and the other main Avengers returned that Rhodey and Stark mended their friendship. Moving ahead to the next big phase of Rhodey's life, we catch up with him in the post-Civil War era of Marvel Comics to find that sometime off-panel, James has been wounded and had his arms, legs, and even parts of his face replaced with cybernetics. While in this condition, he worked with the 50-state initiative to recruit and train the now registered superheroes. In a story that took place after Secret Invasion, involving clones and Norman Osborn, Spider-Man fans will know this combination often ends up complicating matters. James ended up back in a fully healed body and returned to his superhero career, mostly as War Machine, but also taking a third run as Iron Man, and also a brief stint as the leader of a fleet of sentient Iron Patriot androids. During this time, he served on the Secret Avengers, then on the main Avengers team. Not long after this, War Machine was part of a team of heroes, including the Ultimates, A-Force, and the Inhumans, who had tried to prevent Thanos from acquiring a new cosmic cube, based on the vision of the precognitive Inhuman named Ulysses Kane. That ambush did not go well, with She-Hulk ending up in a coma and James Rhodes, aka Rhodey, being killed by the Mad Titan. This ended up being the inciting event that launched the second Civil War in the Marvel Universe, with Rhodes' best friend, Iron Man, and current girlfriend Carol Danvers, aka Captain Marvel, leading the opposing sides. That event ended with Tony, quote-unquote, dying once again. We're up to 4 deaths now for Tony, if you're counting. But actually ending up in a coma thanks to the various genetic modifications Tony had gone through to interface with the Iron Man armor. When Tony inevitably woke from this coma, he was able to use his knowledge to return Rhodey to life, since James had undergone similar changes. Since Rhodey's resurrection, however, he's been afraid to get back into any of the various armors, but will join the fight when needed by piloting a vehicle called the Manticore that doesn't set off his anxiety/fear regarding armored suits. Now, I noted Tony's death just a moment ago. Since Rhodes was also dead during this time, there were other characters who took up Tony Stark's legacy, although neither really tried to claim themselves as the new Iron Man. Riri Williams, a prodigy attending MIT, reverse-engineered an older Iron Man suit, and after Tony's death, upgraded her work to make it more her own, and has been working to make the world better as Ironheart ever since, both as a solo hero and as a member of the proactive team of younger heroes called the Champions. The other character who took a heroic turn around this time, although anti-heroic is probably more accurate, is none other than Victor Von Doom. Yes, Dr. Doom, after returning from the 2015 Secret Wars event, decided to try to become a force for good. and having begrudgingly admired Tony Stark for many years, at first attempted to assist him, then, after Tony's apparent death, take up his mantle, redesigning his armor to a more Iron Man appearance, although he was still obviously Victor Von Doom. Doom has since returned to a more villainous modus operandi, most recently seen in the rebooted Fantastic Four comic, arresting and threatening to execute the FF for trespassing into Latveria when Galactus arrived in the country. Now, this covers pretty much everyone who has actually claimed to be Iron Man in one way or another, but many other characters have donned a mechanical suit invented by Tony Stark, including Squirrel Girl, Deadpool, Spider-Man, and even Spidey's Aunt May. But these characters have enough history that their stories will probably be covered sometime in the future. Who would you like to hear more about next? Or do you have some other question you'd like to hear me answer? Send me an email at welcometogeektown, all spelled out, @gmail.com. Or leave a comment directly on the show notes at www.welcometo, the number 2 in this case, geektown.com. Other contact options include facebook.com/welcometogeektown or Twitter @geektownpodcast. Also, if you'd like to support the show directly, come join the Patreon at patreon.com/welcometogeektown, where for just $1 per month, you can get access to full scripts of the shows, outtakes, and a monthly shoutout. You can also help the show grow by subscribing and giving a 5-star review over on iTunes to join the Geektown City Council, which helps other people find the show, so we can all tell them, "Welcome to Geektown, population, us." Welcome to Geektown is written, narrated, edited, and produced by me, Kurt Onstead. Theme music is by Aaron Lovitz, logo art by Archie Santana. All other sound clips are the copyrighted material of their respective owners